Hello folks, Joe from Hello Sailor Effects here. Anyone who's been following my Instagram channel will know I recently took ownership of this Selmer True Voice treble and bass 50 watt plexi-ish style amplifier with a croc skin covering. It was originally sold to me as original with just a new power transformer. However, having removed the amplifier from its cab and turned it over to see what's going on, we can find that it is completely different and totally modified. The bass channel over here doesn't work, which the seller did tell me once I'd purchased the amp, which was nice. And the normal channel does work and it sounds fantastic, which, you know, I really don't want to mess with the normal channel too much because it sounds great. Don't fix what's not broken. However, with that said, I thought I'd have a little walkthrough of the modifications that have been done to this amplifier, and also go through some of the repairs and also some of the general maintenance, so I don't have to do any other maintenance on this again once I've got it up and running. So first of all, the transformer and the work that's been done to this has been done fantastically. You can see here, this is actually the power transformer. It is massive. It spans, you know, a third of the amp. It's that big, but it's been neatly cut out for the terminals. It's been installed well. It's even had the different values for each of the tags inscribed on there, which is nice. This tag board's been added, and this has been added because, as you can see over here, the rectifier valve is completely gone. It should be a GZ34 according to my schematic, and that's been replaced with these two really old diodes, which I mean, I'm assuming the work to this amp was done some time ago because, you know, it looks old. It doesn't look like anyone's been in here for some time. But these two diodes have been added for rectification. Then if we go around here, we've got a balancing pot for our 6.3 volt heater windings. So this has been added in, definitely not original. And then as we go on to the circuit board, you'll see all of this style resistors. These are all they've all been changed. They're not what would be originally in it, and they're newer style. These carbon comp resistors, I can't tell if they're original or not. I mean, they are old. However, I'm sure these amplifiers never come with this style carbon comp resistor. Not from the pictures I've seen online, but I may be mistaken here. They may be original. Who knows? Now, one thing I would like to change is these caps here, the cathode bypass caps. But I don't actually have any 20 UF caps at the minute, which is insane. They're all on board. I'm currently at home for the weekend, so I won't be changing these three, which, I mean, these two here are part of the bass channel, so maybe they are what's wrong, I don't know. Other modifications, so on the original, or when this originally came out, this kind of braided earth cable, so what you would normally see is a sheave, kind of like what's on pickup, old two conductor pickups. That would have come through and been soldered onto this tab here, but that's been completely removed and changed with a nice big thick earth wire that goes onto this earthen buzz bar, if you like, and that's really good. I'm happy with that. I will be replacing this part of it, just because the cap's on the other side, on the outside. It's kind of like a fender where the caps are on the outside, but there is no doghouse, which is kind of dangerous. I mean, the caps all seem to be okay, but I'm going to replace them just because I want to unsolder them and heat shrink everything, so there's no way that myself or anyone else could get a zap when changing the preamp valves. I'm going to start off by changing just as much as I have to, and first things first, this cap here, it's involved in the bias supply for the EL34s. Now, hopefully, if I can, I'm not very good at video editing, I'll edit a picture of the I don't know how well you can see this, but of the terminal down here, that eyelet that it goes into. There's just a crack around where this cap is going into the eyelet. Now, I've had this amp on and working, and this obviously worked, so I'm, you know, I've caught it in time, no damage has happened to the amp, you know, it's neither here nor there. But I'll be replacing that for a Sprague Atom cap, just because I have it, and this is really old. I'm assuming Hunt's, I think, yeah, if you look on the side there, it's an old Hunt's cap, so these electrolytics do dry out. And the amp's non-original, so I'm not gonna I'm not gonna devalue it anyway. I'm looking at this amp as being kind of a JTM 45 when they moved to the JTM 50, the Black Flag era. They done away with the rectifier valve and went to diode rectification, solid state rectification. So I'm excited about that. And if the bass channel, another thing, once I get the bass channel running, if it doesn't sound great, because this amp's been modified, the bass channel will get modified. And luckily enough, the bass channel actually has two 12AX7s in it, so maybe we can get some sort of hot rodded preamp channel from that one, and just a normal channel here. Right, so I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this cap here and replace it for a well, for this Sprague Atom cap now. Right, now that that's in place, and I'm fairly happy with it, I'm going to move on to the next thing. So the next thing I noticed was this braided cable here. Now that's clearly no good, so I'm going to change that out. Right, so I'll sort the rest of that that earth cable out when I flip the amp over and sort out the filter caps. Next on the cards is, I don't know how well these hold up, and I think this is 100 PF, 100 PF cap that goes from the first bass channel preamp valve to the second bass channel preamp valve, via the tone controls. I'll have to check the schematic again to be certain, but anyway, in my experience, when I'm harvesting old components for pedals, these sort of capacitors don't hold up all that well. So I think the next stage is going to be to pull it out, put it on a component tester, and see what it tests like. You can get these testers off Amazon for next to nothing, and that is testing pretty much bang on 102 PF with no leakage whatsoever. So I eat my words, and I'm going to put it back in, and I'm not going to check this one now because it seems like a pointless evolution. Okay, so as we're going through this and as I'm looking, I can see clearly that some of these connections here are really old and not all of that great. So I'm just gonna re-solder or to line these up exactly. This center cap is going to have its strap not over the center of it if I was to line them up in a straight line, which is kind of frustrating because I don't want this cap to slip out. But what I can do is put a dab of glue underneath to make sure, or epoxy or something, to make sure that these caps aren't going to move or come loose in the near future. I think that may be the way I go, or I'll just misalign them and run the resistors accordingly. Having consulted my vast stock of stores, which I don't have here, I don't have any silicon with me, so I'm unable to stick down the capacitors to make sure that they don't move around or come loose with silicon. So I'm just going to use a small dab of epoxy. I'm sure all the amp nerds out there screaming at the screen right now telling me I'm insane and I shouldn't be doing this, but needs must, I'm afraid. This is probably the least offensive way I can do it. Apologies. Having made the right hash of that first one, it seems these clips are fairly stout, which is good, I suppose. So I can't imagine these are going to move around much, but we'll soldier on. Right, so next is going to be the air cable that goes between the bottom there. That was run as a buzz bar between them all, and I'm going to use this copper wire. I actually bought some copper wire on a roll from Vintage Electronics Components. They sell it on eBay. I bought some old solder. I know some people don't like to use old solder, sell by date and whatnot, but it wasn't going too expensive, so I'll be using this single core copper wire for my earth connection. Yeah. And before I forget, another thing that a lot of people either don't do or miss, and I certainly did when I was first starting out, is these wires, even old components, you really need to scrape them down or use some sort of solvent to clean them, just to make sure that that you're going to get a good connection, because all of this crud that builds up on them over the years can affect your solder joint. I have just reminded myself of something. In valve amplifiers, what you want to try and avoid is doing any sort of earth loop or creating an earth loop. So you really want to keep your earth points to a minimum. And with this being an earth cable, I'm running next to a metal chassis. If I was to run it as is, and this touches here, we're going to potentially create an earth loop between this and the other grounds on the amplifier. So I'm just going to run a bit of heat shrink down it just to be on the safe side, belts and braces and all that. I mean, this is a really nice amplifier. I want it to sound as good as it can. Right, now this is where I need to start paying attention to really what I'm doing with regards to covering each cable, because there's full voltage, 400 volts, maybe 300 volts DC going through these cables now. So it's time to start paying attention. Luckily enough, the way I've snipped these off, I've left myself a little road map here, you can see. So I know exactly where I'm soldering each of these cables. With regards to where it goes, I've actually messed up a little bit on my resistor order. I completely missed out, I think, this resistor here, which is the final preamp, sorry, the first preamp filter cap, the resistor for that, the drop-in resistor. I hope this is going to test okay, but we'll cut it out and we'll see. So first up, we've got this white cable going into this end M1 here. Next up, the green going into this one here. I don't know if you can see that very well, but what I've done is I've made a little hook, if you like, on both ends that I'm going to attach together, and then I crimp it together to get a good mechanical connection. Now this is sort of a little bit lazy because I could run a whole new cable going right the way in, but you know, I quite like this method. I believe I took it from D-Lab Electronics. If anyone wants to give them a follow on YouTube, they're a fantastic Teddy's a fantastic amplifier engineer. I think he used to be in the US Air Force, which is all good by me, and this is one of the methods that I've seen him use in the past. Actually, while we're talking about YouTube channels, if anyone hasn't started following Uncle Doug, even if you're not intending on repairing amplifiers, looking at amplifiers, he has a fantastic channel. So shout out to Uncle Doug. So inspirational, and probably one of the reasons, along with Skip Simmons of the Vintage Amplifier, the Truth About Vintage Amplifiers podcast, another great in the old amplifier business. While speaking about that, if you haven't checked out already, I was actually a guest on the the Truth About Vintage Amplifiers podcast, which is probably one of the highlights of my pedal building career, if you like. So getting to speak to Jason and Skip was fantastic. I mean, I got a bit starstruck and started, you know, well, I can't even explain it. I was like a million miles an hour because I was so excited to speak to Skip. You know, he's such a legend in the business that just blew my mind, getting to speak to him. So I may have come across as a bit of a fanboy on that episode. So you can have a laugh about that if you ever watch it. Before I get 7,000 people telling me that I can get a heat gun instead of using a lighter, I know I've got a heat gun. My wife's bought me one many moons ago, but I just really like using a lighter. Right now, before I move any further, the next step is to consult my guide and see which these resistors are. I believe this is a 27k, this one at the back here is a 5k, this one is a 50k, so we shall see. As you can see, they've wrapped the resistor leads around the terminals. Probably best practice, great mechanical connection. However, pain in the backside to get out for me right now, so I think I'll just clip them out. Another multimeters out of shot there, but we're getting 26.8, which means that this resistor technically is way within spec. I could definitely reuse this. I'm tempted to keep it original. Let me know what you guys think Let me know what you think about that. But you know, there's enough legs on it. I could possibly get that in there. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna reuse this one. I know best practice says to replace it, but I'm be pragmatic here. It's still bang on the money, so I think I'll keep it in there. And now the final resistor. This one I will definitely have to be replacing because I do not have this this resistor in stock, and that is this one. I'm really hoping it's going to be within tolerance, otherwise I am knackered. There I'm getting 59.6, so I think that's going to be close enough for government work. However, this is going to be a nightmare to fit in. Well, as you can see on this side, it looked like I was getting a really good solder joint. However, flipping it over, and it looks like there was still some contaminants on the cable, on the wire. So just need to scrape it all off and have another go. I'm totally thrilled with the design layout of this part of the amplifier, but it is what it is. I mean, these CCL electrolytic capacitors may well have been good for another 10 years or whatever, who knows. But rather than find out, I think it was sensible just to change them out now. Right, next is a look at the preamp valves. Now they really are important because, or important in this case because I don't know why the bass channel hasn't been working. That takes 2 valves. Yeah, so let's have a look at the valve liner. I should also mention that that I completely forgot to bring my electrical cleaner home with me, so I haven't cleaned the sockets, which is basic servicing. Apologies, Skip and Jason, I can hear you both screaming at the screen now, calling me an amateur, which I am. So the first valve that was in here, V1, was this lovely Mullard ECC 83, which is a 12AX7, and that was in the V1 position. So V1. Next, in the B2 position, which is also for the bass channel, which was defective, is a Mullard Holland ECC 83, which is the British variation or name for the 12AX7. Now, I no idea if these valves are working. I do need to, well, I need to fire the amp up and check, but here we go. Now, in the V3 position, which is the normal channel which works, was just a modern JJ, as in the V3. I may end up swapping this out. Nothing against JJ valves, they're probably amazing. This valve itself works, sounds great, but why not? I would prefer something vintage in this amplifier. And then in the phase inverter position, V4, we've got a 12AX7 from General Elec. This looks like an old one to me. I probably could chase up the code and find out what year it was made, but this is the phase inverter. I know this works because the normal channel works, so yeah. Right now, at this stage, I'm going to fire up the amplifier without the power valves in, with the EL34s, just because then I can see if all of these 12AX7s light up, and I can also get a voltage reading on my new filter caps, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so after the little test that we did before, I found that the bass channel was real flubby. Surprise, surprise. I didn't like it, so I've done some modifications there, and also I've had to change this here, which is the negative bias diode. So it was only putting out 21 volts, negative 21 volts bias for the EL34 output valve, so I had to change that, see if it makes a difference. It's now got a 1N4007 in its place. And then coming to this channel here, the bass channel was a bit flubby. It was just unusual for guitar, and as this is a modified amp anyway, I thought I'd get stuck in there. I removed both of the cathode bypass caps for the two 12AX7s in this phase. Moved both of them, put a 12 UF Sprague, however you want to say it, in there for this one, and this one here is a Soviet era 1 UF cap. Let's change that out, and then of course on the second 12AX7 in that stage, the coupling cap that couples the two halves of the 12AX7 together, I've used a V cap. A good friend of mine sent me some caps to try out, and this V cap tone cap was in there. It's a 0.022 UF, if anyone is wondering. So I've put that in there to couple the two halves together, and then coming out of that was a 0.1 UF Mullard mustard cap, but again the channel is too flubby, so I swapped that for a 0.056 UF blue molded caps. These are my favourite caps in the world, but I thought, why not? I'll put that in here, and then we'll see what difference that makes on the whole.